everyone, it's Stephanie and welcome back to my channel. So today I have recent reads numbers 61 through 70. So let's just jump right in. Number 61 is More Than I Love My Life by David Grossman, translated by Jessica Cohen. It's a book. We follow three women: Vera, her daughter Nina, and her granddaughter Gili. And Gili is a filmmaker, and a bitter secret divides Vera and Nina, and it has to do with their granddaughter. And then they do this setup where they travel to this island off of Croatia. This island was where Vera was imprisoned and tortured for 3 years after she refused to betray her husband to the government. I'm really not doing the synopsis justice, but I really did not like this book. And honestly, I gave it 2 stars, and now I'm like, that was kind of high. I really thought I'd like this, but the formatting was extremely jarring and kept taking me out of the story. It's set up kind of like, it's a film project where they're looking back on someone's life, and so we're just kind of like going all over the place, and it's told one way here and then another way here, and it doesn't feel cohesive. The characters didn't really have a lot of depth because of this, and because they didn't really have a lot of depth, I didn't really connect with them or care. And I appreciate what the author was trying to do, especially because I know this is based on a true story, but it just didn't work for me, and by the end I was just so ready to see the back of the book. And I don't know if I'll read any more by this author. I've heard very polarizing, people either really like him or really don't like him. But yeah, it wasn't good, and I did not enjoy my time reading it. Next, I read The Book of Mother by Wayne Huisman and translated by Leslie Kamhi. I really liked this one. But it's a debut novel about a young woman who's coming of age, and she's got this really effervescent, dazzling mother, but then you realize something's kind of wrong, and we kind of explore that as we go through the book. It's based on her own life. I don't even really know how to talk about it. I know in a Discord I'm in, somebody brought up that it's kind of a modern version of the Bell Jar, and I would totally agree with that. The main character, Maman, obviously has bipolar disorder, like, to the extreme. So as someone who has bipolar disorder, I really connected with this one. The kind I have is bipolar 2, so I don't have as much of the mania part, but I have extremely low lows and a lot more frequent lows. So I thought that the way the author portrayed this was extremely realistic, and I really loved learning about Maman and her life and how she came to be Voilen's mother, and how her mental illness and how she deals with it affected her children and her marriage and everyone in her life. I think I listened to it in pretty much 1 or 2 sittings because I just could not put it down. Beautifully written, and it's sad and funny and just so well done. So well done. And I would definitely reread it again because it was just fantastic. So next I read When We Cease to Understand the World by Benjamin Labatut and translated by Adrian Nathan West. So this was interesting. I don't really know how to explain it, because it's a fictional work with a lot of non-fiction elements to it. So I think it kind of toes the line throughout the whole book, but it covers scientific discovery, ethics, the line between genius and madness. So we kind of follow different scientists and their discoveries and their lives, but it kind of plays with it, and also includes some fictional elements to it. I don't really know how to explain it because it's so different from anything I've read. It's very irreverently written, dives into the personalities of these scientists and their lives, and then looking at overall themes. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I did really enjoy it despite that horrific synopsis I just gave. It's one that, again, I read it a few months ago and I still think about it and think about things in the book. So I would definitely reread it because I feel like I would get a lot more out of it on a reread. Next, I read Popisho, or the alternate title is This One Sky Day, by Leon Ross, and this was a nomination for the Woman's Prize for Fiction. This was one of the weirdest books I've ever read in my life. It starts off kind of normal. We're in this world, magic's everywhere, the politics are horrible, kind of like our world, everything's broken. Yeah, we follow these characters and they need this one thing. I honestly don't even know how to describe this book, but it had the weirdest imagery I have ever read in my life. It's, I think this is like a fantasy, magical realism, speculative fiction book. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. The writing was lovely. And it was very captivating, but I didn't really connect with the characters as much, I think because there was so much jumping around. But I did really enjoy how the author wrote the world and the dialect and the culture that she brought to it. I just genuinely do not even know how to describe this book or what is going on in it. So if you're interested, check it out. I gave it 3 stars. I did enjoy it, and there are some things I will never forget about this book because they were just so out of left field. Next is A Killer Stitch by Maggie Sefton. This is book number 4 in the Knitting Mystery series. We follow Kelly Flynn. An alpaca sheep rancher is found dead in Bellevue Canyon, where she lives. She decides to get involved in the murder investigation. Things go from there as per usual. This is another one of those series where I just love the characters and the setting. She's got a Rottweiler named Carl, who I just adore, and I just love the personalities of all the protagonists in the book. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was a pretty good mystery, but not my favorite in the series. Next, I read Creatures of Passage by Maroa Yajide. This was so good. I went into this only knowing that there was a haunted 1967 Plymouth car involved, and it just surpassed my expectations. So we follow our main character, Nephthys, and she's a taxi driver. She ferries these ill-fated passengers in her haunted 1967 Plymouth Belvedere, and it's got a ghost in the trunk. So in doing this, she kind of deals with the grief over the death of her twin brother, Osiris, who was murdered and then just dumped in the local river. And this is all in the synopsis. So unknown to her, when the novel opens, her estranged great nephew, Dash, is finding himself drawn to the banks of that same river. And Dash has witnessed this horrific thing. And so he's still questioning what he saw. So he is having conversations about it with this mysterious figure he calls the Riverman, who appears every time he goes there. And one day Dash shows up unexpectedly at Nephthys's door with a cryptic note, and Nephthys has to face what's happened and kind of reconnect with her family to deal with what's going on. That's a very, very, very surface level synopsis to this book, but the writing in this was just so atmospheric and poetic and haunting, and the characters were just so memorable. Definitely look up trigger warnings. There are a very good amount of triggers, and some of them are graphic, so please keep that in mind. But I thought this was so well done, and it was just such a beautifully written book. And the way that she weaves all these plot threads together at the end was just masterful. And it's definitely a book that has stuck with me, and I think about it a lot. And it kind of gives me Toni Morrison vibes, particularly Beloved. It's just one of those that I feel like I'm going to need to reread it, but I'm excited about that. And it's just one where I would sit there listening to the audiobook and I would forget to do whatever I was working on, like knitting or dishes or whatever, and I would just be so immersed in the audio that I just had to listen to it and couldn't think about anything else. So I highly, highly recommend this one. It was just fabulous. Next, I read Deadly News by Jodi Halford. This is book 1 in the Britton Bay mystery series. We follow Molly Owens, and she is a journalist, and she has come to town and is trying to bring the struggling Britton Bay Bulletin back to life. One of her kind of grumpy reporters turns up dead, and she gets involved in the investigation. I really, really liked this one. I loved the characters. I loved the scenery. I did not want to put this one down. And it was just such a fun, cozy, and I loved the relationships in this one. So next, The Chonker, War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I finally finished it, and it was an experience. So I buddy read this with my friend Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia, and it took us about 3-ish months to read it. I feel like it was definitely way too long. For a book this long, you really have to earn the length, and I feel like it did not earn the length. But despite me not really caring that much about the military aspect of it, there were certain characters in this book that I really, really loved, and I really enjoyed following their journey and their storyline. Will I reread it? Not anytime soon, but maybe down the road I'll reread it again. I'm happy I read it, but I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. I gave it 3.5 stars. Anna Karenina is still my favorite by Tolstoy, but I am happy that I read this, and it was a good book. It just wasn't a new favorite like I thought it might be. Next is Dyer Consequences, book 5 in the Knitting Mystery Series by Maggie Sefton. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. It was a really fun, cozy. I love the yarn shop and all the knitting lingo. It makes me really happy. The audiobook was really fun, so I'm really loving the series, and I'm enjoying moving on to each new installment. And finally, I reread The Cracked Spine by Paige Shelton. This is book 1 in the Scottish Bookshop Mystery Series. I read this because I was a co-host on the Cozy Mystery Book Club's discussion in March with Angela from Books Are My Heart. And it was so much fun. We followed Delaney Nichols, and she just takes a leap and moves to Edinburgh to start a job at this bookshop, The Cracked Spine. Things aren't quite what they appear. There's a lot of stuff she doesn't know when she gets there, and somebody turns up dead. She gets involved in the murder. But the characters were fantastic. I loved the Scottish setting. I loved the bookstore setting. I think I liked this one even better on reread. I just thought it was so much fun. So, have you read any of these? If so, please let me know. If you just want to let me know you're here but don't have anything to add, drop a blue heart emoji down below. As always, if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button if you'd like. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.